The Ohio State Buckeyes. That's the Ohio State we've been waiting for. That was it. And it really wasn't all that surprising. I got to be honest with you. We kind of called it. We kind of told you I thought they'd roll. Kind of told you that we thought it would be a team that you didn't really want to mess around with this time of year. It was amazing to me, the narrative that was surrounding Ohio State coming into this game. And it was internal, it was external. Everybody and their brother was talking all negative. Everything was negative. It's like, this team doesn't have this team can't do this, Ryan Day's this. Like, it's like, dude, just watch them. Okay, just watch them and tell me how you think they'll fare if they put it all together. Like, if they put together a complete performance by watching this team play, and you might never get that complete performance, but if you did, if you got it, think about how good this team could be. Well, we got that complete performance on Saturday night. It was complete and utter dominance in every possible way. I think probably the most impressive part of this game is that coming in, this is not, I think, even the most diehard, Buckeye-crazed fan, where the Buckeyes can do no wrong. Even he would probably admit, he or she would probably admit, yeah, the offensive line concerns me a bit. The offensive line for Ohio State has been the Achilles. The offensive line had been the concern. And think about the protection that Will Howard had in the game against what is an excellent pass rush. I mean, there's some guys that are going to make a lot of money rushing the passer at the next level that are on that Tennessee defensive front. And Will Howard was pressured 6 times. 6 times in the ballgame, where he was under duress and having to move and change and alter the launch point 6 times. You look at the amount of pressures that he felt against the Michigan Wolverines, the amount of pressures that he felt at times at other points of the season. Nebraska gave their offensive line some fits. There were a bunch of times this year where the offensive line was like, man, that is a major, major problem for Ohio State. And that offensive line, that might be the group that holds this team back from winning the national championship. Well, if the offensive line plays anywhere near like they played this past weekend, they're going to be just fine. Not concerned about it whatsoever. The other thing I'll say about this is the other part of Ohio State's evaluation has been, I don't know, man, Will Howard, I don't know. And it's been fair. There have been reasons to be critical. There are parts of Will Howard's game that do at times frustrate me as well. I do think he's sometimes way too high with the highs and sometimes he's way too low with the lows. He makes incredible plays, but he'll also have that kind of play that kind of leaves you thinking, like, why did he do that? Like, why? No, why? He has some moments where you're like, oh, frustrated with that decision. But he also has some moments where, my goodness, the accuracy and the downfield accuracy is off the charts good, man. So impressive. How many times did he hit guys downfield in stride when it's pretty well covered and it didn't make a difference because the accuracy on the deep ball was as good as it was? And that was about as good as he can probably play. And look at the result. They just took a really solid Tennessee football team to the cleaners. I mean, took them to the cleaners, and it wasn't even close at all whatsoever. I think Will Howard and Jeremiah Smith's incredible. No one's going to deny that his receivers are amazing, okay? Jeremiah Smith, everybody knew that performances like this were always capable. The thing that I think was most frustrating for Ohio State fans was the fact that Jeremiah Smith was targeted just 6 times in the loss to Michigan. Well, that wasn't going to be the case in this game. Working against Jermod McCoy, who I think is a really good corner, by the way. He's a veteran. He's physical. And it didn't matter. The true freshman Jeremiah Smith, he won that battle time and time again. And we had talked a little bit about Boo Carter and the matchup that he would have against Emeka Egbuka. That was a matchup that was won by Egbuka. One that we thought would be won by Egbuka. Like, we kind of told you how this game was likely going to go, and this is exactly how it went down. The thing that was most surprising, though, like I said, was the amount of protection that Will Howard had in the ball game, and I think they deserve immense credit for that, for keeping this defensive line off balance. The other thing I'd say, too, is I feel like the Buckeyes defense, they've gotten the credit they deserve. Like, everyone's acknowledged that the Buckeye defense, even the biggest Buckeye hater, is going to sit there and say, all right, this defense is pretty dang good. They're pretty sporty, right? Well, I look at this defense and the amount of times they were able to create pressure, the amount of times they were able to kind of slow down the receiver. And there was really nowhere for the receivers to go. I mean, I thought Tennessee looked hesitant. I thought they lacked explosiveness. I thought they couldn't win their one-on-ones on the outside. I mean, you have 256 yards that Tennessee had against this defense. 73 came on the final drive of the game when the backups were in the ball game. So it was really like 185 yards total offense in this game for Tennessee. So it was a really, really big beatdown from the Ohio State defense. And one thing that we had talked about was Tennessee's tackles. Like, Tennessee's tackles are a problem. We said it in the show last week. Said Tennessee's tackles, you need to watch these guys because I think guard to guard, they're very good, but the tackles, that's a huge issue. Well, it was pretty obvious. Jack Sawyer and Tuimoloau, they wore them out on the edges of the defense. 8 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, couple sacks for Tuimoloau, 5 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks for Sawyer. Like, these guys were relentless off the edge of the line of scrimmage. So tons of credit on the edge of the defense, also tons of credit on the outside. I thought the coverage was excellent most of the night. The other thing I would say too about Ohio State, if we get this type of performance against Oregon, I think they'll beat the Ducks. I'm just flat out telling you, I think the Ducks are really good. But now this game's going to be in a neutral site, a vetting and a setting and a venue, not a vetting. It makes sense, though. You can just combine the two. A venue and a setting that Ohio State is really familiar with. They play like they played last night. That's Ohio State's game. And if they play like that 3 more times, Ohio State's going to win the national championship. But I'm just going to tell you that. The other thing I'll say about Tennessee, it just kind of shows you without Dylan Sampson and not really having any impact whatsoever, the team is just not where they need to be. I mean, this is a good, solid team. They play hard. They're super physical. There's a lot of things to like about what Tennessee had. But the star of the show all season long was Dylan Sampson. When Dylan Sampson was not there on the field, it was going to be a huge issue for Tennessee. And Nico's going to be a good player. I think Nico's got a chance here in time to become a really good player. He's not there yet. He's not at the point where he can carry a team by himself without much of a run game and be able to just carve defenses up right down the field. He's not there yet. His offensive line didn't give him any help whatsoever, and I thought the defensive performance was less than stellar from Tennessee whatsoever. It was a bad matchup for him, so I'm not super surprised, but it was a less than stellar effort all the way around against the Buckeyes for Tennessee. But you got to really give more credit to Ohio State than you do have to criticize the Tennessee Volunteers for their performance.